The man sitting looking over my shoulder, Sir Walter Scott, matters enormously to me. Matters firstly because he was a kinsman of my family, a great friend. He regarded my ancestors as his clan chiefs. I think he is one of the most underrated now and forgotten of great Scottish writers. He produced extraordinary verse poetry, but he also, in the form of this novel, the 3 volumes of which I'm holding here, Waverley, in 1814, invented effectively a new genre of writing, the genre of historical fiction. We are in the 250th anniversary year of his birth. So this prize that's been going for more than a decade has to me a particular significance this year. Of course, it's imagination, it's fiction, but a really great writer is able convincingly to tell you the story of how it looked from the people then's viewpoint. And I think that's what makes it so magical. For us, the quality of the writing is really vital. I think beautiful prose, it's been one of the most significant features over the last decade amongst our winners. Regardless of the genre, they just write wonderfully well, compellingly well, and that's very, very important indeed. Well, the winner receives a cheque for £25,000. We feel very strongly that all the authors should be recognised, so each of the runners-up on our shortlist receive £1,500. The winner also receives a photograph of a landscape of the borders. This part of Scotland, where we are in the south of Scotland, was known by Walter Scott like the back of his hand. It inspired him, talking to the people up and down the valleys. It gave him raw material for these wonderful novels. And so we feel it's rather nice to have a really special photograph, which has been taken by our son, of one of the landscapes in the countryside round about here. Particularly, as sadly, as a result of COVID, it hasn't been possible to invite everyone here as we've done in previous years, all together here at Bow Hill. Though I'm very happy to say that whoever has won is going to we hope be coming to a postponed event in November. And it's fascinating this year because it's open to writers from the Commonwealth. And in fact, we have no fewer than 3 out of 5 of our authors are Australians. But in alphabetical order, they are Stephen Conte, The Tolstoy Estate, Kate Grenville, A Room Made of Leaves, Hilary Mantel, The Mirror and the Light, Maggie O'Farrell, Hamlet, and Pip Williams's The Dictionary of Lost Words. And rather than me try to talk about them, I think it would be a good idea to hear from them.
So the Tolstoy Estate, the hero is a German military surgeon. It's set in the Second World War, Paul Bauer, and Bauer is part of the occupying force that sets up a field hospital at the former estate Yasnaya Polyana of Leo Tolstoy to the southwest of Moscow. And it's there that he encounters the head custodian of the estate, Katerina Trubetskaya, who proceeds to give the Germans hell while treading a fine line between having herself sent away or shot. So that's the essential crucible in which I've put the characters.
Okay, Elizabeth MacArthur was the wife of the man who was known in my childhood as the father of the wool industry, and was a great hero in the Australian culture of the 1950s and 60s. And his wife was this little known character who was supposed to be this perfect, devout, devoted, supportive wife, you know, the classic late 18th century wife. Well, I read some letters of hers and I thought, well, actually, there's another story here where she's not devout and devoted and compliant at all. She's somebody much more interesting than that. And as a way of exploring a general idea about how we believe dangerous myths in the past, I thought, right, I'm going to write a book that pretends to be her secret memoirs. So they'll kind of blow the whole thing open and explode the myth.
This is the English Reformation. It's a huge divide and a change in national life with consequences that resonate down the centuries. Wolf Hall deals with Cromwell's rise to power. He facilitates the marriage to Anne Boleyn. In the second novel, Bring Up the Bodies, we see Anne's fortunes totter and fall. We see her brought down and brought to the scaffold. Now, the new novel, The Mirror and the Light, begins 1 minute after the fall of Anne's head. Cromwell goes off to have his breakfast. And there he is standing in the wreckage. So what will he make of it and what can he build? And he builds himself into the second most powerful man in England. It's the end of his story, but he's the man who's made a mark. He's changed European history.
So, and my teacher just mentioned in passing that Shakespeare had a son who was called Hamnet, and he had died aged 11, and Shakespeare had gone on about 4 or 5 years later to write the play Hamlet. And, the strange almost echo of these names really struck me. And I've just ever since then have been always intrigued by the link between the death of this child at aged 11, his very short and tragic life, and the writing of, I think anyway, Shakespeare's greatest play. So I wanted to write a novel because I feel that Hamlet, Shakespeare, the boy, has never been given his due. He's been consigned to a literary footnote. History has largely overlooked him, but I wanted to bring him back to centre stage and give him a voice and a presence and say, this child was important. If we hadn't had him, without his very tragic death, we wouldn't have Hamlet and we probably wouldn't have Twelfth Night.
Essentially, the Dictionary of Lost Words is a fictional story about a woman called Esme, and I've woven her story through the real story of the Oxford English Dictionary. So it starts with a little girl sitting under the sorting table where all of the words for the English language are being defined, and one day one of those words falls into her lap, and the rest of the story is essentially following her experience of how the words influence her, and also how she influences the words. So that's the story in a nutshell.
And it gives me enormous pleasure to announce that the winner of the 2021 Walter Scott Prize for Historical Fiction is The Mirror and the Light by Hilary Mantel. And I and my wife and all our judges offer our warmest congratulations to Hilary, not only for the extraordinary pleasure and the remarkable writing in this year's winner, The Mirror and the Light, but for what she has achieved with her great trilogy about the life of Thomas Cromwell. And now let us hear from Hilary herself.
When my publisher called to tell me I'd won the Walter Scott Prize, I was amazed and I was truly delighted. The prize has brought great hope to writers of fiction about the past. It's rewarded some interesting and distinguished books, and it's helped the reading public see the variety and the strength of the discipline. I'm so happy, personally, that The Mirror and the Light has won this recognition. It was certainly the hardest thing I've ever done. And I know that the author isn't always the best person to judge, but it seems to me to be the strongest of my trilogy of novels about Thomas Cromwell. It launched the trilogy in fine style when the first volume, Wolf Hall, won the Walter Scott Prize. And now this rounds off my many years of effort for me. And I'd like to thank the judges for their faith in me, and also the Duke and Duchess of Buccleuch for endowing this prize so generously and in a far-sighted way, because it's proved a great encouragement to my fellow writers and a source of great pleasure to the reading public.